Hi guys, it's Mary and her books, and I'm here today to do a different kind of video, one I really wasn't planning originally on doing. I was going to keep my channel all about books, but I decided, you know what, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I am a breast cancer survivor, so why not speak about it? Because I have some things to say that could be important, and if I could help one person with doing this video, then I want to do it. So my story, and I'll try to do this without getting emotional. I am 47 years old, and when I was 46, right before I was turning 47, happy birthday to me, I found out on January 7th that I had breast cancer. I felt a lump late in 2018, and I knew that I was going to be going in for my mammogram in January, so I just decided to wait until then, because you always think, it's not going to be me. I've not had a big family history of any kind of cancer, but especially breast cancer, and I had been told based on my family history that I was not high risk, and so you just think it's not going to be you. So I said, I'll have my mammogram in January, it will be fine. And, but I know when I felt it, there was something in my head that told me that I needed to worry, but I turned it off. So I went in for my mammogram, and the mammogram, I did the 3D so that they can, they say they can like slice and dice that so they can see so much more, and if you have dense breasts, they highly recommend that you do the 3D mammogram. And they even put a little marker where I had felt something so that they could say, we're going to look really closely in this spot. And so because I did have a concern, they put me in a room after my mammogram and said, just wait here, we're going to go ahead and look at it and just see. Do a kind of a cursory review. They did that and came back and said they didn't see anything. And they said, but because you feel something, we're going to do an ultrasound. So I went into the room and they started doing the ultrasound. And I knew immediately they weren't liking what they saw. The ultrasound tech didn't like what she saw. So she went and got a radiologist who came back in, and she looked at it on the ultrasound, and she said, do you have time for us to do a biopsy, a needle biopsy today? And I was like, okay. And I mean, I'm the kind of person that I would rather get it done right then. There was no waiting. So I said, okay, let's do it. So they went ahead and did it. And I'm going to tell you just up front, if they tell you you need a needle biopsy, get it, because it can save your life, but it's going to hurt. Just fair warning. It was not a pleasant experience. They used the ultrasound wand to basically kind of press on that spot so that they can see the needle going in to ensure that they're getting a sample of the correct spot, and that's what you want. But between that pressing and the needle going in, it hurts. And I cried. I cried because it hurt. And I cried because I knew something was not right. And they were so wonderful. The technician, the radiologist, they were so wonderful. They were very businesslike, but also very caring, and that is important. So I had the needle biopsy, and they say they're going to review it, and that I will get a call, hopefully the next day. Well, I didn't hear anything next day, so I started calling, and they said, well, we don't have it, it'll be next week. So I had to go through the weekend, and then on that following week, on January 7th, I got a call from my gynecologist who said, can you come in? And I told her, I said, look, can you please just tell me? I don't want to come in. And she said, are you at home? And if they ask you to come in and then they ask you if you're at home, before the words come out of their mouth, And I said, I am at home. And she said, it is breast cancer. And it was invasive ductal carcinoma, which is a very common breast cancer. And I said, what do I need to do? Those were basically the first words out of my mouth, because I just, in that moment, decided, let's deal with it. That's all you can do. And she said, I'm going to refer you to a surgeon so you can have a consultation with the surgeon to decide what we need to do next. And they called me back that afternoon. My gynecologist's office called me back that afternoon and said, we have an appointment for you on Thursday, just a couple of days. She said, can you get in there that day? And I said, definitely. And she said, I want you to know right now that I am fast-tracking this appointment and getting you in there, not because I'm worried about you, but because I want you to know that we're taking care of you. She said, it's not that I'm worried that you need to be fast-tracked because we're worried about it growing or anything like that, but I want you to get in there because I can just tell that will make you feel better. And I said, yeah, definitely. So that was step one. So step two is meeting with the surgeon. And I was so lucky to get referred to a surgeon who has just become an angel to me. And Dr. Wilson is his name, and he met with me that day and was so compassionate and so caring. And I was a nervous wreck. My husband was able to go with me to the appointment, and you never know what they're going to say, but he said that based on what he could see, it was he felt like it was going to be stage 1. You never have any guarantees, but he really felt like it was going to be stage 1, and that he would be able to just do a lumpectomy versus a mastectomy. But he wanted me to have a breast MRI first to be sure that once I had surgery, we knew we were getting everything. So with a breast MRI, they obviously do an MRI of only the breast. You lay face down in the machine and they do basically like a chest MRI, and they can see in both breasts if they're seeing anything concerning. And I was able to have that the following week, I believe it was. And then after that, he called me back, I swear it was the next day, and told me that nothing else showed up on the MRI. What a relief that was. And my tumor was 1.7 centimeters. And according to that, it's stage 1. Again, we don't know for sure until we have the surgery and we check everything out, but I'm still showing stage 1. And so we got the surgery scheduled. I believe the surgery was January 25th. I used to know all these dates off the top of my head. I believe it was January 25th. And I went in and I had a lumpectomy and a sentinel node biopsy. So that's basically step 3 is my surgery. So during that, they're able to do it outpatient. And with the lumpectomy, what they do, depending on where, everybody's different. And I am not a doctor, is that obvious? So I am only telling you about my experience. So if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you're worried about something with yourself, talk to your doctor. I'm only telling you my experience. With my lumpectomy and the sentinel node biopsy, they were able to do an incision and basically remove the tumor. Their big concern there is that they get what they call clear margins, so that around the edges, they're not worried that they left any little cells in there. And so they remove the tumor, and then they also remove at least one lymph node. In my case, they only had to remove one. They do this prep work, which is it's amazing what they can do. Let me just say that. It's amazing what they can do, but they use this injection to determine what is your main lymph node. That's your sentinel node. Because if you had any cells that were floating through that lymphatic system, it would go to your sentinel node. So if they check that one, they can feel really good that they had, and it's clear, they can feel good that you're clear. So I had the lumpectomy with the tumor removed, and then the sentinel node was removed, and then they biopsied the sentinel node. And that surgery was, it's a surgery. It's obviously not the most fun thing in the world, but it really wasn't that bad. I was a little bit sore and stiff afterwards, but not that bad. I had the scar obviously on my breast where they removed the tumor, and then a scar under my arm where they removed the sentinel node. And I was very fortunate that my doctor is a wizard, and he called me back, and he didn't love the margins. He would have liked them to be a little bit larger, but he said they were perfectly acceptable and decent, and that the sentinel node showed clear. So we felt really good. I think he called it stage 1A, and he felt good that we were clear. So he gave me close to a month to recover from that surgery and heal up, and I was feeling pretty much myself within a couple weeks, like 100%. And then I had to go back in with my follow-up with him, and he said, okay, it's time for me to refer you to an oncologist. And up to that point, we hadn't really talked about chemo. I'll go a little side note here. I asked questions as they pertain to the step that I was dealing with at that point. And I think it was one of my coping mechanisms, and for me, it was the right thing to do. They gave me a big book about breast cancer. There's obviously all kinds of stuff you can read online. Don't do it. I tried once. It scared the crap out of me. I don't really recommend that because everybody's case is so different. So I didn't even read the book they gave me. I didn't even look at it. I brought it home and put it in a drawer over here. I have never looked at it. So I only asked questions as I needed to for each step of the process as I was dealing with it. And that worked for me. It may not work for everyone, but it worked for me. Take it day by day. So when he mentioned chemo then, I wasn't like completely surprised, but there was a big part of me that had gotten myself convinced that I was not going to have chemo. And as you can see, I did. He said, my surgeon's exact words to me were, if you were my daughter, I would want you to have chemo. And I said, okay, because I trusted him. If he had not said that to me and I didn't have so much trust in him, it probably would have been a harder thing to go meet with a medical oncologist to talk about chemo. But because I did have so much faith in my doctor, my surgeon, I knew I had to have chemo then. It just became, okay, I'm having chemo. And he referred me to an oncologist who became another angel for me. And that was the next step in my journey. Go meet with an oncologist and talk about chemo. Now I'm going to tell you about that. So my oncologist's name is Dr. Orcutt, and he's wonderful. He has a very different personality from my surgeon, so it's interesting, but they're both so professional, so caring, so compassionate, so knowledgeable. I trust them, and it's important to find doctors like that you can trust. I get emotional talking about them because I feel like they, being who they are, have saved my life just mentally. because I don't have to question every little thing. I don't feel like I have to research every little thing for myself. I'm able to trust them to tell me what I should do. So I met with Dr. Orcutt after Dr. Wilson, my surgeon, released me and said, "You're healed enough from the surgery. Now you can go in and talk about chemo." And I met with Dr. Orcutt, the oncologist, and he said, "Okay, we're going to do a PET scan," which is a different kind of scan, basically from here to the midpoint of my thighs. He wanted to make sure there's nothing else in here we need to worry about. And he said, "We're going to do that first. We're going to do some chemo education for you." So they actually have you come in and spend an hour with an educator to talk about chemo, which I think is wonderful. And she can answer any questions that you have. She can explain to you what side effects you can expect that most people have from the type of chemo that you're getting, and she can explain to you kind of some of the side effects you might get, but probably won't, but just to be prepared for, and things you need to have at home, different supplies. And then the third thing I had to do was to get a port installed. And a port, if you're not familiar with that, is something that they put into your body. I had a surgery here, and the port sat right here, and I have a little scar right here because the port ties into your vein there, so that when you get chemo, they basically give you an IV into this port instead of doing an IV in your arm or your hand or anything like that, because the type of chemo I was having can be very hard on your veins. And so they want to do this port to help protect your veins. So Dr. Orcutt was very funny because he said these things, and I was like, "Oh, it's going to take several weeks for me to get all this stuff done," because he was like, I think it was a Thursday, and he said, "I really want to do your first chemo next Wednesday." I'm like, "That's 6 days. I've got to have a PET scan, I've got to have my chemo education, and I've got to have a port installed. That's not going to happen." He said, "Hold my beer." And his office, I don't know how they did it. They coordinated all of that. I saw Dr. Orcutt, my oncologist, on Thursday. I got a call that afternoon, and I had my port installed by Dr. Wilson on Friday. That is a surgery. I was in surgery the next morning getting my port installed. It was amazing. And I am so thankful for them. They have just been so on top of things. You will keep hearing me say how much I'm thankful for them, because I am. And yeah, so I met with him on Thursday, found out I had to get a port. I was having it installed, I think it was less than 24 hours later. And it is a surgery. They put you under general anesthesia. And the surgery was not bad at all. I was a little bit tight through this arm just right after the surgery, but the surgery isn't bad at all. And then I had my chemo education and my PET scan. I think it was the following Tuesday. And I did have my first chemo that next Wednesday. Dr. Orcutt got what he wanted. I had my first chemo that next Wednesday. Now, before I get into chemo, I want to talk about the port a little bit, because the port was probably the hardest thing for me mentally. Why? It's something sitting under your skin that you can see. It's under the skin, but you can see it. You know it's there, and it's not supposed to be. Your body and mind are telling you it's not supposed to be there, or at least my mind was telling me that. And I had a very hard time with it. Even just like this, like putting my hand on my chest right here, I would freak out if my finger would touch the port. You're not going to hurt it doing that, but I didn't like it. with the port here, there is also a line that's going through your vein, and I could see it very prominently above my collarbone, and it was hard for me. I was pretty much uncomfortable physically because of a mental problem that I had with that port until it was removed. And I was not expecting that, to have such a hard time with the port. I don't think a lot of people do. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. Some people have said, oh, I hated my port, whatever. I had a love-hate relationship with it. Yeah, I hated it in that it freaked me out, but I loved it because I know that it saved my veins. It never failed on me. It worked every single time. Doing the IV through the port was a breeze. You barely feel a prick as they go through the skin there. So it's totally worth it. But if you're that kind of person with your body, like I am, go in being prepared for that. And I learned, after talking to a few people who helped me, to breathe, to not be so hard on myself. Like, oh, you're being crazy. That's what you tell yourself. But I'm not. My body is actually right. It's not supposed to be there. And I had to learn to accept my body and then be like, it's okay. They tell you that the ports rarely have problems. And they tell you what to look out for. So if you're not having any of those issues, try to ride it. Just ride the wave and deal with it. But if there's anyone out there that's struggling with your port, I didn't know really what to do. If you're struggling with it and you need to talk to someone, comment below. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it and talk to you about how I learned to deal with it. Now, having said that, it was a celebration when I got it out. But for my treatment, I had 6 chemo treatments, 3 weeks apart, and it was, again, not fun. But, I mean, honestly, it really wasn't as bad as I think sometimes media can make it out to be, and every person is going to react differently. Some people probably handle it better than I did, and some people, their body handles it worse, or they have more issues with it. My mom actually gave me this to celebrate my last day of chemo, June 5th, so very exciting there. Well, okay, so let's get back on track here. So June 5th, I finished chemo. Well, what I didn't mention was about not even halfway through chemo, I noticed that my original scar from my lumpectomy was looking a little funny, and then it started leaking a little bit of fluid. And so I went to my surgeon, and he checked it, and he actually used a needle to pull some fluid out because I had a seroma under the skin. It's basically just disgusting, but not really. It's your body. Your body's like, you've got a void there. You've got a space there, and your body can't have that. So it put this fluid there. It was a mix of fluid and some blood, and it just sat there, and it would swell a little bit. And so he used the needle to pull some of that out, and we hoped that that was going to be it. Well, unfortunately, the seroma continued to grow and kind of expand some, and it actually spread out the scar from my original lumpectomy. And we couldn't do anything about it because I was currently having chemo. You really don't want to have surgery while you're doing chemo. It affects your body healing. So we basically just had to manage it while I was going through chemo. And I had a couple scary moments because at first it was kind of okay. It was uncomfortable. The skin was very sensitive, but it was okay. and then it decided to open. So I basically had like an open scar from that original surgery. And all of that fluid and blood just had to go somewhere, so it came out. And that was tough because, again, nothing you can do about it. But my surgeon was wonderful. I was going in every 1 to 2 weeks so he could check on it. We wanted to make sure I wasn't having any signs of infection or anything like that, even though we could not deal with it meaning fix it permanently at that point. We managed it, and everything turned out fine. After I finished chemo, we decided to give it a while to see if it would heal and close up on its own, and it didn't. It got better, but it did not completely heal. And it got to the point where I needed to be able to start radiation, and I could not start my radiation treatments with an open wound. So I had what they called a re-excision, I believe, or a revision lumpectomy. And what he did was he went in and just cut out the skin that was damaged and a little bit of tissue because he wanted to test it. He's like, if we're in there, let's test it. So he cut all that out, re-stitched me. He actually double stitched me. So he stitched me on the inside to make that a little bit tighter and stitched my skin as well, so we could try to avoid this happening again. And luckily they tested that tissue just to be safe, and it all looked good. No signs of anything. And the only good thing about having that second surgery for the lumpectomy area was that he was able to take out my port under general anesthesia because I was already under. He was able to take out my port under general anesthesia because a lot of times they will take it out in the doctor's office. They will just do a local. I could have dealt with that. I didn't want to. So I chose to look at the positive. I had to have a second surgery, which I really didn't want to have. But at least he was able to take out my port at the same time. So there was a positive there. And the other positive was, of course, nothing showed up. Okay, so I'm done with chemo. My port's gone. Okay, let's get going on radiation. I was ready to go because at that point, I could really see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I am almost done with these treatments. And I did have to wait several weeks after my second surgery because we wanted to be sure, again, it's healed, it's nice, it's good to go before we start doing radiation on it. I met with the radiologist, and the radiation oncologist, I think is what he's called. I think it's a radiation oncologist. And he told me I only needed to do 4 weeks of radiation. And when you have radiation, you go 5 days a week. And it's a very quick process, but still, you have to go 5 days a week for 4 weeks. That's a time commitment there. So that's something you just kind of have to psych yourself up for. And so I met with him. Then we scheduled what they call a mapping session. And what they do then is they put you in this, I think it's a CT machine, where they basically map out your body and they plan out where they're going to direct the radiation. And obviously that's important because you want it to be focused on the area that is affected and not go anywhere else that you don't want it. Because you hear the words radiation, it's kind of scary. And radiation has been a mental process for me as well, a mental journey, let's say. So I had the mapping, and then it was actually a couple of weeks before I was able to start radiation. Because after they do all these x-rays, they actually have to kind of do basically like a computer program almost, based on where you need your treatment and what your body looks like, your map, and it took a couple weeks to get that done. So it was a Friday a few weeks ago that I went in and we had a dry run of my radiation. After we did the dry run on Friday, on Monday I had my first treatment, and that was a little over 2 weeks ago. Today is Monday when I'm filming this. I'm going to post it on Tuesday. As of Monday, I've now had 11 treatments, so I am more than halfway done. That was just my phone telling me a text message, and if you heard my alert, yes, it is Darth Vader saying, I am your father. I'm a nerd. Accept it. Okay, back to radiation. So I had my 11th treatment today, and my last day will be October 11th. I am very excited, and it has flown by. It's been super easy. And if you see here, I have about 12 or 13 of these all over my abdomen, my chest, I should say. And they are some of the markers that they use to make sure I'm in the right place. They have these different laser lights that will show on my body to make sure that these markers are in the right place so that, again, the radiation is going into the right spots. October 11th, I will be done with radiation. Celebration time. Now, long term, it's going to be a long video. I apologize. I won't spend much more time on it, but long term. They can never tell me with a 100% certainty that there's no chance I'll ever have breast cancer again. They're just not going to tell you that. Multiple doctors have told me at this point they feel I'm cancer-free. Obviously we had good luck with my surgery and got clear margins. The chemo was designed to go throughout my entire body to make sure if there were any cells that had floated through my body, that chemo was designed to get rid of those. The radiation, the way we've described it, Dr. Manshan, my radiation oncologist, has described it as extra credit. Basically, he told me this when I met with him. He said, you're cancer-free. He said, consider this as extra credit. We want to make sure there's no little microscopic cell in there that could ever come back. So that's why I'm having the radiation. The majority of my radiation is on the entire left breast. I will have, I believe it's 4 days of it where they will focus it simply on that spot where I had my original tumor. So that spot's getting like 20 days. The entire breast is getting like 16 days. So we feel really good about things. We caught it early. We've done all of the treatments. We feel really good about things. My chance of recurrence is pretty low. Now, not to get into too many details, but I am not technically triple negative, but I'm close to it. And I will need, because of certain hormonal factors, I will need to take a hormone blocker for the next 5 to 10 years. It will probably be tamoxifen. And I've known people very close to me in my family that have had to take that before, so I've been able to speak with her about it. I have an online support group that I'm a member of in Facebook that a lot of the members there have taken different variations of these hormone blocker drugs. And the purpose of that is if you had a tumor that was, I'm not a doctor at all. So basically, if estrogen could cause your tumor to grow. I believe that's how it works. If estrogen could cause your tumor to grow, then they want you to take this hormone blocker for estrogen. Because obviously, are there side effects with any drug? Yes. But you know what? If that can get my percentage of a recurrence down, you better believe I am taking that pill every day. So I will be meeting with my oncologist actually next week to get my prescription for that, because after I finish radiation, I will start taking that pill every day. But I am almost done, guys. Almost done. And if you had told me last year at this time that I would be sitting here right now saying this, I don't know what I would have said. You don't know what you can deal with and what you can go through until you do. And I've been lucky to be able to keep, for myself, a positive attitude. I feel great about things, and I feel like I'm a better person than I was before I had the diagnosis. I feel like I have a better appreciation for life, for my family, for my friends. It has changed me, and in every way possible, it's good. Am I glad I had cancer? No. But you know what? It's not what they make it out to be on television. It's not a horror story. It doesn't have to be. Even if you're not as lucky to find your stage 1, you wouldn't believe the stories I hear from women of stage 2, stage 3, and worse. And there's so much they can do today for breast cancer, for colon cancer, ovarian cancer, whatever it is. Find doctors that you can trust. Listen to yourself. And you can get through it. I'm so thankful. And again, I wasn't planning on doing this video, but then I thought about it and said, you know what? I am so blessed and so lucky to have had the care that I've had from my doctors, to have had such support from family and friends, and to be in such a good place physically and mentally, that I want to share that. So, sorry I've talked so much. If you have questions, please feel free to comment with any questions. If I'm able to answer it, I will. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to answer medical type questions. I can only tell you about my experience. But I'd be glad to help you in any way that I can. I wish you all the best, and I promise I'll be back with maybe a book-related video next time. How about that? But wish me luck. Less than 2 weeks of radiation left. October 11th. We're going to do this. Thank you. Bye.